Mr. Sass is not gonna be here today, right? All right, Kirby's gonna be here? All right, well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our county council meeting. We're gonna first start out with our special housing committee meeting. I'm gonna turn this over to our chair of that committee, Vice Chair Anna Johnson.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone. Our special housing meeting is now called to order, and we are asking for the approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, been properly moved in second. All in favor? This is aye. Okay, thank you. The members of this committee is,
It's committee of the whole now.
okay,
Yeah, it's
that's
committee
right.
of the whole.
Thank you. I was wondering why we have it as,
Sorry.
okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
And Reverend Middleton.
Reverend Middleton,
is there.
thank you for joining us by Zoom.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Can we hear
Okay.
Reverend Middleton? Can we hear him?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us, Reverend Middleton?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
we can barely hear you. Can we
All
turn
right.
him up? His audio up? Can you say something again?
I'm as high as I can go. Good evening to all,
We
and
can
thank you
barely
all
hear you,
for.
Rev.
Can you hear me better?
Was better.
No. Staff's trying to correct that problem now. Can you speak now, Rev?
Yes. Good evening to all, and thank you for allowing me to be here via Zoom. I know I can't vote, but I certainly appreciate the discussion.
Yes, sir. Okay, Ms.
All
Johnson.
right, thank you. At this time, we would like to have a presentation update from the housing consultants.
Great.
And I asked you, council members, if we'll just let them to present first, and any questions you have, we'll do that at the end of the presentation.
Thank you all. Move a little closer to the mic here. Opportunity to give you an update on the Housing Our Future housing strategic plan. I'm Justin Carney with Development Strategies, and really appreciate the time tonight to go through this. We're going to be providing you with just a brief highlight of where we are and the progress that we're making in our planning process. Please note, we have done a lot of analysis. We have a ton of data that we are not going to inundate you with this evening, but we will definitely be sharing with you after the meeting, and we can dive into any questions that you might have after the presentation. Just want to give you a little bit of an update on our progress. Where we're at, we're sort of straddling right now between step 2 and step 3. We're wrapping up kind of our understanding phase, a lot of stakeholder conversations, doing a lot of analysis and bringing that data to the steering committee, to our planning team as we move into our strategy phase, which we will be really diving into in the months of May and June and July, and pulling together that strategic framework and that strategic plan for housing for you all to consider. What I'm going to spend the next few minutes on is really giving you a highlight and an understanding of the analysis that we have been doing over the last several months. And you're going to start to see the analysis that we're doing, the themes that are emerging and starting to point towards some direction for that strategic plan. And one of the first things I wanted to highlight for you all and everyone in the audience really is defining affordability. Every conversation we have starts with, what does affordability mean? What does it mean for housing to be affordable? And so, I want to kind of just set that context. As a general rule of thumb, housing affordability is, and when people think of housing cost burden, are we burdened with our housing costs? HUD says that if you spend more than 30% of your income on housing costs, whether that's rent and utilities or whether that's a mortgage and mortgage insurance, that you are housing cost burdened. So that's just a general rule of thumb. So you try to make housing that is affordable means that your households in Charleston County are paying less than that threshold. What does that mean specifically, though? Here's just a few highlights, both from the homeowner as well as the renter side. Here's the renter's perspective. The average rent in Charleston County is a little over $1,500. In order to afford that rent and not be housing cost burdened, a household income needs to be $62,000 just at a bare minimum to be able to pay 30% of their income or not more than 30% and not be cost burdened. Yet 46% of the renters in the county are cost burdened. On the homeowner side, we're looking at a median sales price of $538,000. What does that mean from that typical housing cost burden perspective? It means that a household needs to be bringing in an income of $150,000, and that's household income, so it could be one, two earner households, in order to afford the mortgage, the PMI insurance and that, but that doesn't even include what the income's needed if they aren't homeowners already and what they need to do in order to save a down payment. Again, just some perspective on kind of a housing cost burden and using that as an affordability metric. We get to, what we do those, that's good. That's an interesting perspective, and people can sort of put themselves, pin, where's my household income? Where do I fall? How much am I spending on my household income on housing? Another more nuanced way to understand it is relative to the area median income. Within the region, what are 50% of the people making above and below that line, that area median income for Charleston County and for the region? And what you see here, 30% of area median income, 50, 80 to 120%, those breakdowns, HUD uses a lot of those at that end of the affordability spectrum as thresholds for a variety of housing programs and services that are funded by HUD. So how do we use it here within our context? Well, we're able to use this framework, use this area median income, and then understand, what is the incomes, where do your households fall within this band? How many households make above, below 50, 80 to 120% of area median income based on their income? And then kind of looking down, what are the rents that they're able to afford at those different levels? So case in point, just right in the middle, moderate income, or what's sometimes called workforce, that workforce range is typically that 80 to 120% of area median income. That could be a single elementary school teacher earning $60,000. It could be a paramedic, firefighter, gets you a single household into that low income range. And so based on just those incomes, what can they afford? And you can see the rents and the housing values below that. It's important to note that household makeup has a big impact on this. A single earner household with one or two children, that income may, as a single person household, may be in workforce. As you add a couple of children, it bumps them down onto what they're able to afford because there's other costs in the household. And so really this is just a way for us to understand what are the households in Charleston County, what are they bringing in for incomes, and what can they afford at these different levels? And you'll see why this is important on one of the last slides as we start to develop that strategy. So that's really a way that we use to help us understand affordability. We're going to spend a couple more slides here talking about what's driving the issue. A lot of this is going to sound familiar to you all. You live it every day, but I think it's just important context for where we're going. So what are the key drivers behind the housing challenges here in Charleston County? One is population growth. In the last decade, there's been considerable population growth, outpacing growth at the state average and even the national average. And you can see there's 16 people per day coming into Charleston County. Significant economic growth. Jobs have been adding at a faster rate than almost any economy in the Southeast, including Charlotte. And so you've got people coming in for those jobs. You've got people coming in for a variety of reasons. Part of that growth dynamic is also a growth in high-income households. And, it's interesting to think about, and we look at migration data and where people are coming from that are migrating to Charleston County, and the top 6 counties are very high-income earning counties. People that have high-paying jobs, have high housing costs, and if they're selling and renting there and they're bringing that value to Charleston County, you can see how they're able to compete for housing across the affordability spectrum. And you can see the statistic here. Since 2000, in the last decade, 11,000 households have been earning more than $200,000 household income. And so high household incomes coming into the area. As we're experiencing this growth and this magnetism in jobs and income, we're also experiencing a decrease in the inventory of housing. That's at the rental and at the homeowner side. Rental vacancies are decreasing, and inventory of for sale properties, as you can see here, there's less than a 1 month supply of for sale properties in the market here in Charleston County. So you've got people coming in, incomes coming in, inventory going down. You can see how that starts to paint a picture. As I said, a lot of data I'm giving you. I'm just going to key in on some of the highlights on some of these. And this one here, I think, exemplifies that third point of incomes coming into the county. You can see the population change from 2010 to 2020. These are the households that are coming in and the income brackets that you see here. A significant number, and you can see a significant number of the net new households in Charleston County and in the region are earning more than $100,000 of a year, and what that will then do towards housing pressures. So those are some of the drivers, right? A lot of this is, again, kind of issues that you deal with on a daily basis. What we're starting to see now is with the conversations, with the analysis that we're having, we're starting to blend that experience with the data and starting to develop some key themes, and some of these key themes are rising to the top. I suspect that as we go through this list very quickly, these will be issues that everyone is familiar with, and nothing will be here, as the themes are, nothing will be really new to you. But I would say that the analysis and the conversations we're having are really adding a level of detail that will point us to very specific strategies as we continue into the next phase. So what are those key themes? I'm not going to just read this all to you here, but housing is being created. It is generally keeping up with the household growth in Charleston County, but it's really happening at one end of the market spectrum, and it's happening at that high-end, expensive side of the market spectrum. The existing housing that we have here in Charleston County, it used to be affordable, and that affordability is eroding, and it's becoming harder to stay in those homes. It's being harder to afford those new homes on that more affordable side of the spectrum. Adding a significant number of jobs. There's a lot of jobs bringing in, even in that middle bracket of income, and really some opportunities for economic mobility with that job creation. But, is the housing there to accommodate the people that have that economic mobility and kind of, again, along the entire spectrum of housing affordability? The housing stock dedicated affordable housing is very limited and is in kind of a jeopardy of decreasing in the near future. There's limited availability of land. If we're talking about new production of housing, where is it going to go? And location is a very important conversation. There's also a conversation around part of that location and availability of land and where is it going to go, is understanding that there are some investments and assets happening regionally, like the rapid transit corridor, that really present some opportunities that could be leveraged within this housing strategy plan. So those are just some of the key themes. I've got a few of the data points to illustrate that. This one here is representing new homes that have been sold in the last 2 years, and the income range that those housing units are at. And you can see here a large number, the majority of new construction that has been sold in the last 2 years is in that 120 or more income range. So that's the spectrum of where that new construction is happening. And it's, you can see, what do people at the lower end, even that 80 to 120% range, if they're able to buy a house, is the housing stock there for them to be able to do that? Looking at the renter side, this is, an example. We've talked about the increase in rents over time, and there has been a significant, I'll point your vision to the right-hand side where it says Class A. It's that light blue, and you can see that jump just in the last 2 years of rent from almost $1,600 to almost $2,000. for rent. And what that means is that in the last 10 years, a renter household has had to save and spend, more than $6,000 to be in a rental unit like that. And so when we're thinking about that, looking at the other side, we thought, well, is that where all of the increase is? Is it just on new high amenity, high rent kind of units? So we broke it down into this Class C, Class B, Class A. And these Class C, they're just the older rental units, less amenities, maybe needing a little bit more maintenance. Still an increase there of rent over the last 2 years. And within the last 10 years, someone who would be renting in that older rental space would be spending $6,000 more now than they did 10 years ago on that same unit. So again, the affordability on that rental side. This is a conversation, kind of a twofold. Well, let's focus this conversation on the dedicated housing units. There are around just under 11,000 dedicated affordable housing units for lower income households in Charleston County. That's how many units there are. There are 50,000 low income households that could qualify for those units. It's a 1/5 gap, right? And so, the other issue with those dedicated units is that they don't need to be affordable forever. There are time horizons that may make some of those affordable units hit the open market and make them not affordable anymore. So there's a threat to losing those dedicated units. So the conversation is, how can we create more of those dedicated units, close the existing gap we have, and then preserve the dedicated units as we have them? And then this is just a representation. We've got a nice map series looking at the entire county of looking at sensitive lands, protected lands, and where is development opportunities for new housing. But I wanted to just kind of focus this kind of location piece on the Low Country Rapid Transit line. And, this is, I think, represents, we've done some analysis here looking at what are the underutilized properties, what are the properties that are available for infill, redevelopment, and maybe density. Rapid transit lines are often areas where you might want to concentrate density and diversify the housing stock. And that density and that diversification can add affordability to the mix. And then if you're putting them along this line, and households that need affordable housing also have transit readily available and getting them to jobs, you're further alleviating the burden on those low-income households to own homes, to rent homes, to have jobs, and to get throughout the area. And so we've explored this a little bit, as well as I said, some more countywide location issues. So, as I said, we spent 2 solid hours yesterday with your steering committee. I don't know, we had 75, 85 slides of data, and that wasn't everything we could have showed them. So you're getting a flavor of this. One of the final pieces is really understanding what's the future housing demand. A lot of this is snapshot in time right now. It's historical data. What does this mean going forward? And so we do housing demand studies, and we have a variety of methodologies that we bring into understanding what's the future demand looking forward. It's talking about how much will the population grow using population projections, and from other agencies that do that. What's the economic projections? How many, what's the jobs that are coming in, the people that are coming in to fill those jobs? What are the incomes that are being paid? Which of those groups that are coming in and the earnings that they make, which ones are growing more rapidly? And what are their housing preference choices? And then all of that kind of comes down to, what can residents afford? So we have various methodologies that allow us to start to estimate and project housing demand. And over the next 10 years, you're looking at around 30 to 35,000 new housing units needed in order to accommodate the expected growth with the expected jobs at certain levels of income. And so we take that further and we start to bring back this AMI, area median income breakdown, that you see here. And based on our methodologies, we're able to say, here's the population, here's the jobs, here's their incomes, and put them inside these various brackets, these various income brackets, and then say, what is future demand for sale housing? What is future demand for rental housing? What income brackets do they fit in? And this is the snapshot that you have over the next 10 years. Why is this important? This is the lens that we will look at that will help drive a lot of that strategic plan going forward, because units at the 120, 150, 200% AMI, the market can take care of a lot of that. So let's just make sure we're reducing the barriers that allow the market to take care of that. As you start to move your way down towards the left of that spectrum, and you're looking at 80 to 120%, that workforce housing kind of area, the market can provide some of that if the barriers are gone, but you might also need some incentives for developers to come to the table and provide that lower value, lower rent unit. Because if there's incentives aren't there, they'll just continue to provide the ones at the higher end. As you work your way further down, it's incentives, it's subsidies, it's operating subsidies and development subsidies. All of that package comes together, and having this framework and breaking down the demand is what allows us to do that. And so then, that is the lens, that is the big lens, the big picture that is guiding that strategic plan. And of course, there's capacity for the county to participate. What are the full options to help us do that? As I said, from market rate down to subsidized, down to incentives. What should we be looking at? What's going to really move the needle and provide and meet the housing challenges that Charleston County has? What's the county's specific role? And we will get into that as we move forward. We're not going to stop at that. We're not going to stop at this. We're going to talk about specific tools that you all can do to bring to bear on this. And then really, as you talk about priorities, as the steering committee talks about priorities, as the community prioritizes, where do we want to put these resources, we're going to then be able to align your community partners, the other municipalities, nonprofits, philanthropy, even private development around these actions. And I'll just leave you with this slide here to kind of summarize where we're headed in this strategic housing plan. As we start to put the pieces down, we're going to be talking about the need for new production, the need for new housing. We're going to be talking about preserving the housing stock that we have and the affordability of that housing stock and keeping people in their homes now. Access and stability is all about, if they're moving people into quality rental units, moving renters that want to be homeowners into quality ownership units, and providing the services and the means for them to do that. And then there's this capacity issue at the end. One of the things that we spend a good deal of time, and our stakeholders and the steering committee will spend a lot of time talking about, is, do we have all of the players here in the county and here in the region that we need to provide all of these resources for new production, preservation, and the services for stability? And understanding, are there gaps in that capacity? Are there overlaps that we can leverage? All of this becomes the framework for that strategic housing plan, and that's the direction we're going in the next couple of months. The list that you see here is not intended to say that we've already put the answers on the table. A lot of these are tools and programs that we have seen work across the country, and the work that we do and the research that we do, and we're just providing this as examples. We will begin, really using the deep analysis that we've done and further feasibility analysis and community conversations to find the right tools for the county to engage in. And I think with that, that'll be my summary.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Carnegie, for your analysis of the housing issues
You bet.
we have here in Charleston County. And looks like you're doing a real thorough job here of putting this information together. So
Thank you.
I'm going to look forward to the interventions later on. Council members, we have any questions or comments?
Ms. Johnson.
Okay, Mr. Moody?
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Thank you for your presentation. And I understand there was a larger deck. Would we have that, Ms. Johnson, maybe sent to us?
You bet.
So we can review
Yes.
it in more detail. Appreciate the summary tonight. Two quick questions. You said the median purchase price was $538,000, and I'm assuming Charleston County. Is that the entire county? And where I'm going with this is, we can assume that sort of working your way up the coast, Seabrook, Kiowa, downtown, Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, are those numbers, are the numbers being skewed because of those higher values? So I mean, I think it's likely to assume we may not have affordable housing on those islands. So is that skewing the number?
Yeah, so this is Miriam Keller. She's our project manager for this effort, and I'll let her answer that.
They do reflect the entire county, all sales in 2022 year to date. So yeah, I think that is possible. There are other sales in other places. I think what we do see is a lot of the sales that are happening because inventory is so low. They are on that higher end of the spectrum. So is it just that single number is probably not a perfect reflection of all the complexity in the market, and those high sales may be pulling that median up.
Right, and I think you had mentioned before, and I agree with you, the higher sales properties will take care of themselves. I mean, that's a stratosphere that we don't need to really necessarily worry about. So I guess I'm just trying to make sure that the pie or the problem we're trying to focus on is more concentrated, I guess. Is the analysis going to include any impact of rising interest rates, which likely will slow down purchase prices, recessionary, inflation, things like that? I mean, again, we're in the summary, but is that going to be considered in your analysis?
It will be, and actually that's been a bit of the conversation with the steering committee and with others is, how do we kind of scenario test not just the needs, but also the strategies to make sure that, they are kind of resilient to some of the circumstances that, all we know is that they will change, not necessarily how they will. But
I agree. I mean, the last 5 years have been extraordinary, and what goes up must come down to some extent. So I wonder what impact your analysis will have factoring those things in.
If we could, Miriam, you want to say a little bit about the sub-market analysis that we've started to do? I know we didn't present any of that data, but we're looking at sub-markets throughout the county on this.
That would be useful.
yeah, that's right. Back to your first question, we do have a lot of data that looks at, what are those key metrics in, we're calling them kind of sub-markets or sub-areas across the county, both on the kind of supply side, but also the demand and household side. So we can provide that information as well. I think as it is back to your question about the uncertainty, that's definitely a conversation that we're going to keep in the mix, just as we start with the steering committee and others exploring what the options are, thinking about what does this mean if there is a little bit of softening in the market. It might create new opportunities, actually.
I agree.
As well as other challenges.
Thank
So
you.
absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Okay, anyone else?
Yes, Ms. Johnson,
Anyone
this
else?
is Kylon Middleton here virtually, if I can chime in. if
Okay, yes,
no
sir,
one
go
else.
ahead.
Thank you very much, and again, thank you to the consultants that presented. We were waiting for this for quite a while, and I'm just salivating just based on the presentation, and I look forward to the larger deck. I did hear in your presentation your mentioning of various strategies to preserve the housing market, particularly looking at affordability, whatever we wish to. I'll put that in quotation marks right now. Have you contemplated one of those strategies being a housing trust fund? And if you're thinking in that way, based on other models that you have rolled out in other places, how would you, and if you're not ready to talk about this tonight, then just say that, but how would you envision such for Charleston County as a strategy?
Yeah, I think the short answer is yes. A dedicated housing fund, you can actually see it on our strategy slide here down at the bottom. A dedicated housing fund can actually, allow for funds to be, allocated to any one of those boxes of production, preservation, stability, and capacity. And so yes, that is something that is on the table. It's a strategy that is used in locales across the country and places that we have worked very closely with, both in the planning, strategizing, and even in the implementation phase. I'd say at this point, that is going to be one of the key pieces of the work over the next couple of months. Is where if that is a strategy that is desired, how can we right size that and then sort of where would we then divvy up that fund within this kind of framework of production, preservation, and capacity? And so, yes, you'll see that, I think, further fleshed out as we go forward.
Thank you. That sounds very good. And let me also ask, if I may, Ms. Johnson, is this then, have you seen such funds enshrined in a general budget of a county and or municipality? Or, how would you then structure, in a county budget, or just to make certain that these type funds are housed somewhere? I mean, have you seen them in the county budget, or how would you envision these funds to be captured?
Yeah, before I'm going to let Miriam answer the specifics of that. I think just from a highlight standpoint, those funds are those dedicated housing funds are being funded in a variety of ways, and we're several of the communities that we've been working in, some are using ARPA funds to get things rolling. Others are using a small amount of dedicated general funds and then seeking a very quick match from utility companies or philanthropy. So a $500,000 investment from the city might be leveraged with $500,000 from a utility and then another $100,000 from philanthropy, and kind of leveraging that. That's one way to get it done. I know we've got a really good example in Tulsa. I don't know if you want to mention kind of how they've structured theirs, or maybe that's not the direction to go, but I know Tulsa's another one that we've been working with.
Well, first, yeah, I think that's right, that there are just lots and lots and lots of ways that different communities fund housing funds, whether kind of an initial kind of seed funding or whether a dedicated source. And I think the approaches communities take depends on a lot of factors, just what makes sense in the tax structure, what makes sense in terms of other partners that are possible to bring to the table. In the example in Tulsa, they used funds that were actually returning to the city that had previously been used to incentivize downtown development. And they used a portion of those funds to seed that they're calling an affordable housing trust fund that's actually managed by an entity of the city, and seeded that and attracted a lot of philanthropic money to have some early demonstration programs. And they have a community-based committee that advises a lot of those decisions about grants that are made and the policy that the fund has. So, just one specific example about how different sources came together in Tulsa, but there are a whole range of options, and I do think that's something we're going to focus on is, what are the options, not just for the funds, but also specifically oversight, administration, and things like that, considering that a housing fund of some kind could be an important part of the strategy.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson, and thank you to the consultants.
Okay, thank you, sir. And since you just mentioned about Tulsa, I'm just wondering, are you talking about the city having this project for dedicated funds, or are you talking about the county itself? Because Charleston County does not have a housing authority, so I'm just wondering, are you comparing apples and apples here, or? No.
Right, yeah, it's not a perfect parallel, that's true. It is, it's called the Tulsa Authority for Economic Opportunity, which is actually the economic development agency of the city of Tulsa.
Okay, all right, thank you. Do we have anyone else with a question?
Just
Okay,
one
Mr.
more.
Pryor.
Ms. Johnson about basically said what I wanted to say because it was managed by a city, not a county. But I think the easiest way for us to accomplish what we are trying to go would be a referendum and let the people decide how they would want to fund this. Because we had a referendum the last time that people said no, because I think it was too vague and it didn't explain what we would do. So to answer Reverend Middleton's question, I think the best way to be, if you're looking for reoccurring funds, would be a referendum. Because if you're enshrined in a budget and the economy begins to tank, then it may not be funds available for that because you would have to go with it's needed to keep the city or the county running versus, something that is enshrined that, for matching funds. So I think for us, a referendum would be the best way to go if the taxpayers decide that's where they wanted to go. Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, well, that ends our subcommittee report.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Johnson. We're now gonna move right into our planning and public works, agenda. Mr. Darby is the chairman. He is out of town on today, and so I'm going to chair for him. So our first item is minutes for, consideration of March 10th, 2022. What is the pleasure?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Johnson, seconded by Mr. Moody. Any discussion, deletions or additions? All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Is there a motion to accept this historic preservation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Honeycutt. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. That's easy for you, Ms. Andre. All right. Okay. You already explained that before, so you don't have to go over it again. For those who are watching by television, the internet, yeah, you did this the other night.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Well, this is not for a discussion, but a statement here, because I'm just thinking about the presentation just going past with affordable housing. When we work on these historic preservation in the settlement community, this is given an opportunity for us to try to preserve the housing that we have in these communities. And a lot of times we look at the housing is already at a lower income. When we are not able to protect these communities, there is a big chance of new development coming in and running up the costs of housing in these settlement areas. And I'm so happy that the Beefield community decided to look at this issue here and of preservation and is trying to continue to preserve the housing that they already have in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. That concludes our Planning and Public Works Committee. We are now going to move into our Finance Committee agenda where all members of council participate. I'm the chair of that committee. Item 1 is the approval of minutes for March 31, 2022. What is the
Approval.
pleasure? Mr. Moody moved.
Second.
Second by Ms. Johnson. Any discussion? Deletions or additions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. I'm gonna move item number 6 up. Ms. Honeycutt has an engagement. She has to leave at 6. So I want to allow her to have any discussion if she want to. So do y'all want to take them one by one or y'all want to take them as a group?
Approval on A through I.
A through I is moved. Second by Ms. Honeycutt. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. That was quick, Ms. Honeycutt. So, all right, item number 2 is resolutions A through C. What is the pleasure?
Items A through C, Mr.
There's
Chairman.
a second. And Ms. Johnson, second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, ayes have it. Item 3, consent agenda A through C. What is the pleasure?
Approve A through C.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Worman. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. I'm gonna skip to item number 5. Mr. Swears, you had asked to do this. I'm gonna do this while Ms. Honeycutt is here. So, Mr. Swears, I move to you for item number 5, and I'll go back to
I would
4.
actually like to make a motion to disband the advisory board for the Ondale-McClellanville Consolidated Fire District. And if I get a second, I will explain why.
All right, discussion.
Just a brief explanation. You know, as we have put it out there to the public for applications, I have dug more deeply into exactly what the advisory board does and has been doing. And I've also met a couple of different times with Chief Gadsden. He's only been with us for 7 months, but he's quite experienced as a firefighter and now a fire chief. And in discussion with him, for his vision for rebuilding the board, I said, well, what do you mean rebuilding the board? It's been functioning for decades. And he said, yeah, He said, but we need to kind of reimagine it and come up with something better. I said, well, do we really need it? I said, we have St. John's Fire District, we have St. Paul's Fire District, and they have a whole different setup than Allendale-McClellanville Fire District. Do we really need that? Knowing that Allendale-McClellanville is actually, their staff, their county staff, supervised by Eric Watson. The fire chief actually reports directly to Eric Watson. That's not the case in like Johns Island Fire District or St. Paul's. So I asked the chief, I said, what if we just did away with it? And he was very supportive of that. And he said he would actually prefer that we simply not have it instead of trying to find folks that are genuinely interested in doing it. It would be simpler to simply disband it. I've also run that by Deputy Administrator Watson, and he says he has no concerns with disbanding it as well. Correct, Mr. Watson?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that is my proposal, is actually to disband it instead of the chief struggling to recreate this thing. I think the chief's time is better spent doing the duties of a chief instead of trying to create or recreate his so-called advisory board. So my motion is to disband that, and I'll leave it to the attorney to determine exactly how that can be done. But she has informed me that it can be done, that it is not required that we have that.
All right, your motion has already been seconded, and you do it through an ordinance. We created it through an ordinance, so we'd have to put it on the agenda and then, disband it through an ordinance, and then that's how that would get dissolved.
Okay, so it will come back as an ordinance on another committee meeting, or will it come back to council as an ordinance that we vote on?
It would go to committee and then come back to council?
It could, I could envision it coming on Tuesday with first reading of an
All
ordinance,
right.
if that's what
Okay,
you'll
so that's answered your question. It could go
Okay, okay.
Tuesday, but I think Mr. Suez is gonna be out of town,
In
so
absence, I would prefer it be the next council meeting.
our next council meeting. All right. So any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? One nay, Mrs. Honeycutt. Okay, so you got 15 minutes, Mrs. Honeycutt. You want to take? All right, I'm gonna come back to item number 4. So I'm gonna go to item number 7 to give Mrs. Honeycutt a chance to participate. Item number 7 is community service, directate items off of ERAP. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. All right, item B has been removed from the agenda because of scheduling conflict with Mr. Darby, but we'll go to 8A, appropriation of American Rescue Plan.
Staff recommendation.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. All right, so now we'll go back to item number 4, which is a presentation, update from the coroner. Okay? Bobby Joe, how are you doing?
I'm good, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Council.
ma'am. Madam Coroner, the floor is yours.
Very good. I'll try to be quick. I know you need to get to another engagement. First of all, just thank you for an opportunity to just talk to you for just a moment at the coroner's office and sort of update you on sort of what's happened in the past year and a half. Specifically, one I want to discuss with you is a looming problem that's happening nationally. It is starting to impact Charleston County. I've been experiencing it for the past year and a half. I want to talk to you about that. I also want to talk to you about if we don't do anything, what I think is going to happen and how that's going to impact our citizens and our constituents. And I also have 2 solutions that I think we need to consider for that. So again, I appreciate your time. First of all, I just want to make sure that for those who are new to council, sort of the understanding of what the coroner does. We are the lead death investigator for any death that occurs in the county. We determine cause and manner of death. We identify decedents and make sure we have them positively identified, notifying their families that the death has occurred. When you see in the media that we've released the name or why we haven't, it's because we either haven't got them positively identified or we haven't notified their family yet. So just so you sort of understand that. So what gets referred to us? just to help you understand what we do. All deaths that occur outside of a hospital setting, whether those are in a private residence, whether that is a car accident on the roadway, or for example, yesterday, we had a cruise ship that was docked in downtown Charleston. We had a death on that cruise ship. The Charleston County Coroner's Office is the responsible agency to investigate that death that's docked here in town. Now, I will say to you that that was an unfortunate medical event, but two of my investigators were on that cruise ship for a number of hours investigating that death. So there's a lot of things that happen within this county that you don't recognize because they don't make the news. We also are responsible for every death that occurs inside the hospital where they've been there less than 24 hours, anyone who dies inside the emergency room, and also anyone in the hospital where they've been there more than 24 hours, but it's from non-natural causes. So again, someone's in a car accident, they're transported to a local hospital, they succumb for their injuries a number of days later or weeks later, and that is investigated by the coroner's office. So again, we're very busy. I want to give you some stats to sort of show you what's happened in the past 4 years. So as 2018, you can see our numbers of the number of deaths reported to us. In 4 years, we have added over 20% increase. Part of that has to do with the population that's come in. We're also seeing an increase in number of violent deaths. One thing I want to share with you is cremation permits. Most people don't understand that we authorize all of the cremations that occur in Charleston County. Before a family can have a cremation, they have to get a permit from the coroner's office, making sure that we don't authorize a cremation before a death has been investigated. The numbers are rising drastically, as you see here, 24%. What's important for you to know about this is not an administrative function. By state statute, that has to be an investigator that's deputized that authorizes that cremation. So this is not something I can have an administrative assistant do. This is an investigative function. And then to take a look at the autopsy numbers that we have here. In 2018, we had 416. Last year was 579. As you can see, we have a 39% increase in autopsies. Part of this reason has to do with the opioid epidemic. I do want you to see 2019, where we had 115 unintentional drug overdoses in Charleston County. We are number 2 in the state behind Horry County. In 2020, we were up to 180. I expect that's going to continue to rise. We've had 40 and 22 so far that are confirmed. It's going to be higher than that. For those who are sort of new to council, the coroner's office is located just down the street. We're in a freestanding building that actually council bought, I believe, in 2016. We refurbished that to meet the needs of the future of Charleston County. We moved in 2017. Inside that building is an in-house morgue. Prior to this, Charleston County did not have a morgue. We used a local hospital. We were not taking care of our own decedents. We also built out an autopsy facility, evidence room, everything you see here, including refrigerated trailers, all of which were grant funded. I've been writing grants for the coroner's office for over 10 years, and at this point have brought in just over $1 million for the coroner's office to expand our services. We've done a pretty good job of sort of expanding our own facility. One thing I want to say about the autopsy room, we are the only coroner's office in the state of South Carolina that operates a full autopsy facility. We should be proud of that. We are taking care of our own here in Charleston County. We are leading the state. Our office is also nationally accredited. We are one of 37 counties in the country that are nationally accredited, and we follow all state statutes and also national standards. Where our problem comes in is we have a shortage of forensic pathologists in this country. That is our looming problem, and it's impacting us here in Charleston. And so in 2018, we built the facility, we moved in, and it didn't know where we were going to get a forensic pathologist. And I have with me Dr. Pat Ross. She moved here from the Newberry area. She retired and had a private practice there. We recruited her to help us sort of operate an autopsy facility and to get it up and running. And she has been a contracted forensic pathologist with us since 2018. What's important for you to see about the numbers that are before you. In 2018, we only did 24 cases in the autopsy facility down here. We were learning how to manage a morgue in an autopsy facility. We were doing all non-litigious cases, all cases that weren't going to court, again, so that we could learn that. Dr. Ross, she's told me I can tell you her age. She is 75 years old. She is retired and does not want to go to court. And so 5 years from now, can you blame that? So we were doing all non-litigious cases. So in 2018, we did 24 in this building down here, which was recently refurbished. At the medical university, we said 415 cases. Prior to this, all cases were autopsied at the medical university. We didn't have another option. You can see our numbers and how we've increased. And in 2021, we did 475 of our forensic autopsies in this building. That is 119, or it's a 1,900% increase, just in case you want to know the percentage. But notice the numbers that are next to it, the cases we started sending to the medical university. We dropped by 75% of what we were sending downtown. But look at the next line. MUSC's numbers grew 43% without us. Because all of the other counties surrounding us do not have autopsy facilities. They do not have forensic pathologists, and they're coming from all across the state down to the medical university for services. What happened during this time, however, and this is where it hits our citizens and the problem that we're having, is that during this time, the medical university was very short-staffed and also very backed up. And we got to where we had delays for autopsy of up to a week. So we would have a homicide victim in downtown Charleston on a Friday, and we could not get that autopsy scheduled until the next Friday. So I say that to you, and you think about that for just a moment, that the family was not able to take care of their loved one timely. This was very difficult for law enforcement who are trying to get the information from autopsy in order to solve crimes. This is not good for our community. It is not good as a whole. So now I want you to think for just a moment, if we did not do 475 cases in our own facility, and they had to go to the medical university during this time, or here in 2020, if Dr. Ross should not be available and I do not have another forensic pathologist of which to work with, we are now backed up to the medical university and we will be delayed 2 weeks. What I'm hoping to prevent here by some solutions is that I do not want to have to tell families when there are state statute requirements on when we do autopsies that we are going to be delayed 2 weeks. We need to do something about that to make sure that we do not encounter that. So what are we going to do? So let's talk cost real quick. This is important. Obviously, this is the Finance Committee, and I need you to know I'm not asking you for any money. Maybe the first person to come over here and do that. But our cost for 2021, an autopsy costs $1,200 to $1,300. That is going to change starting July 1. The MUSC right now charges $1,300 per case. Starting July 1, they go up to $1,400. Also on July 1, they are going to start charging $100 for a case that requires X-ray. I can assure you that everything we send down there requires X-ray. Anyone who's had a gunshot wound requires X-ray. All children require X-ray. So the cost just went to $1,500. That's not all. During this year, the other problem we encountered is because they were so overloaded that we were not allowed, when a person was deceased, we normally could take them to the medical university, to the morgue, and they would hold them there until autopsy time. They were not allowing that to happen. So we were having to transport that individual from that location, wherever they died, to our facility. We were waiting for autopsy, and then we had to transport them again down to the medical university at another $150 cost downtown. So starting July 1, this cost is no longer $1,300. This cost is $1,650. That's sort of a staggering cost. We also have contractors. Again, Dr. Ross is in our office as a contractor. During 2021, I had 2 other forensic pathologists who did some contract work for us. Contractors, I've been trying to bring in some others from around the country. They are in high demand. They are expensive. And honestly, I don't think that's good for Charleston County. So I have 2 solutions. First, I think we need to create an FTE for a forensic pathologist for Charleston County. We need someone who only does Charleston County cases, that they will take any cases litigious or non-litigious. We don't have ancillary costs, transport and X-ray. This is also where testimony comes into play. The contractors that I've been trying to bring in do not want litigious cases because they do not want to have to testify, or they're not going to be compensated for that testimony. I spoke with Solicitor Wilson. They do not pay witnesses for testimony time. So as a result, they either do not want to do litigious cases or they want to be compensated, which I don't have funds for either. If we have a full-time employee, that becomes a part of their role. Testimony is there for Charleston County cases. That becomes their role. The other thing is they become vested. They're vested to take care of Charleston County, take care of our citizens, my constituents, your constituents, and they are vested in our community, as opposed to forensic pathologists who want to come here for a week on vacation. They want to do some cases and then they want to go back home. I want somebody who's vested here. I think you probably want that as well. Again, cost, just so we talk, finance numbers, 2021, average cost is $1,250 per autopsy. We did 579, which is 723,000 plus some change. Forensic pathologists, by standards, can only do 325 autopsies. In order for us to maintain our national accreditation, they can't go past that number or have to be within that close range. So at 1,250 and 325, we're paying 406,000 plus. With a salary person, if we started at 275, and I understand that this would be the highest paid employee in the county, that with the fringe, we're less than the contractor rate. We're not paying the transport costs. I don't have to pay for x-ray because we have x-ray. Charleston County Coroners, us have x-ray in our building. We shouldn't be paying for that sort of that stuff. Let me also sort of say to you why I came up with 275. One, it's part of the national trend on what they are making, but it's because of our neighbor to the south, Beaufort County. Beaufort County built out an autopsy facility a number of years ago. They never finished it. They are now finishing it because they are encountering the same problems that we're encountering right now here in Charleston County. They are finishing their autopsy facility, and they have just passed that they are hiring a full-time salaried forensic pathologist for Beaufort County, starting at $275. Here's also what's interesting. Beaufort County only did 189 autopsies in 2021. Charleston County did 579. It's time for us to take care of our own. The second solution has to do with our facility and bringing in the next generation of forensic equipment, which is forensic radiology, and specifically CT scans for postmortem use and also what's called a LODOX. I believe I've secured the funding for the LODOX from DHEC. It could have been used during COVID. This would have been equipment that would have been very important to us had we had it, which we did not. There's going to be another pandemic of some kind. There's going to be other emergencies, and this gets us to a better place where we may not have to do autopsies all the time, and we may be able to do scans. This is the next generation technology, and it can be covered by ARPA. So the problem with our building is we don't have enough power there. We need to improve the power to the building. We also need to do some annexing in order to make the space for these two pieces of equipment. Again, I believe I've secured the funding for DHEC for one of the units, and ARPA funds can cover the rest. So to end, I just have three requests. One, approve the creation of an FTE. Two, approve the ARPA funds, and then I would like to invite you to the coroner's office to come and see our facility and what our capabilities are. And with that, I'm glad to answer your questions.
Okay, so you're asking for 275 for a pathologist and another, just say 500 for a machinery.
Well,
I just want to make.
Well, so the building itself, which we have been working with Crim and them, I think it would probably be about a 1.2 million upgrade with part of the equipment and including an annex for the building, just so you know. Right.
So the total number you're asking for, without that salary, that's going to be a repeated cost.
That's correct.
So
And we're already expending that.
Right.
And those costs are going up starting July 1. That's right.
So is that salary including the 1.2?
No.
Good.
And that money's already in my budget.
Good.
And for that FTE, I'm not requesting any funding. We're expending that money.
Right.
So it's just a transfer line from a line item to a personnel line item.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm good with that. And so I saw you only have one refrigerated truck.
We actually have two.
Two that's refrigerated?
We have two refrigerated trucks, plus we have one non-refrigerated
All
truck. One of them maintains at our office next to a generator. The other one is currently at Public Works being worked on, but the plan is for it to move around for if we have a hurricane that's on the other side of the East
So
Cooper.
while we doing all this, that's what I'm asking. Do you need a third refrigerated truck?
No.
Okay, that's good.
What else are you buying, maybe?
No, I'm just asking, you know.
No, and
I'm just
actually,
saying.
all of those were funded through DHEC.
Yes.
I
Okay,
sit on
I'm
the
good.
executive committee for the Healthcare Coalition. I've asked for a lot of money for Charleston
Okay.
County. We have more coming, and all of that's been funded through DHEC.
Okay, I got another question, but I'll call you afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, that's just your ears and mine. All right.
Okay.
All right.
And again, I'm glad to answer any questions. I'm glad for you to come visit, but it's time for Charleston County to take care of its own.
Okay,
Yep.
no problem.
Okay.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Madam Coroner. So I'm understanding that obviously by having that FTE and not paying contractors and not being, sort of in that market, we'd be saving money. I might have just sort of missed
Yes.
what is sort of the highlight amount of money we'd be saving from that?
Well, I mean,
Have we estimated that, I
well,
guess?
the numbers that I showed you right there, if we did nothing in the costs that we're spending right now, we're breaking even. But we know all of those costs are going up July 1. And so we would easily be saving a couple $100,000 over time. The contractors, again, they are in short supply.
Right.
So they are sort of writing tickets, if you will, on what they're charging. And so by us bringing in our own person as salary position, we're going to have to be competitive. We're going to be saving money over time. And again, we're not having all those other expenses.
Okay, so am I understanding correctly that we're kind of breaking even in the short term and then in the long term saving money?
Breaking even for 2021, that again, that's going to change July 1.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Johnson?
Yes, I have a question. You're asking for only one FTE, full-time. Okay.
And I appreciate that question because again, if they can do 325 autopsies and we're currently at 579, this year we're going to be up to 600.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
That's right. We
one
could easily
person-
have two forensic pathologists. That's exactly right. I think as I begin the recruitment process, if we have the FTE, there is such a shortage that they are in high demand. I think if I have two that are interested in coming to Charleston, and that they are people that we want here in Charleston, I very well may come to see you and say, you know what, I've got two that I think we should go for. And again, the money's already being spent in the budget now. So you're exactly right. Right now, if I had the full-time person, I still have to use the medical university and I will still have to use contractors, which is okay. That's not the problem. But as we go by here, we are going to need two forensic pathologists to cover just Charleston County. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. 'Cause
Thank you for the
You already
question.
have 500 plus.
That's right. We're already
yeah.
we're already
And
there.
you don't want to kill the one FTE that you are trying to get.
That's right. And again, they're limited by national
Right.
standards. They can only do 325. So could we have two FTEs? Absolutely. If I can find them to come to Charleston and work with us, I will be coming right
I'm
back
back.
to you saying I've got two and we need to go for it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right,
Chair.
anybody else?
Kylon Middleton here virtually.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I fully support everything that our coroner, she does a wonderful job and that's a wonderful service, particularly that they provide. I remembered in 2015 with Coroner Wooten, how they were so kind to us in that horrible massacre that we
Yes.
experienced. I am very concerned, certainly I've heard the presentation, fantastic idea and much needed services and upgrades. When I keep hearing ARPA funds directed, now I know that we had several priorities. I did recognize that compartmentally that the ARPA funds, could be used in various ways. One, going toward different inter county agencies to make them whole and that sort of thing, and or to upgrade them. We just gave 1 point, whatever it was, in order to help with the match for the Dotterer project here in my district. I did know that at one point we talked about affordable housing and we kind of put it on the burner, with some ARPA funds being considered for that. And I just want to make certain that we're not giving all the money away before we can also realize some of the other priorities. I'm not discounting what's on the table now. I'm just asking, are there different buckets of these funds that ARPA funds that we're now considering this coming from, or is this just in that pot that is for grabs for everything of those priorities that we've listed?
I'm gonna let Corinne answer that for you, because we just approved hers in 8A. So I'm gonna let Ms. Corinne answer that for you.
Councilmember Middleton, there are two separate pots of ARPA money. We have it, so just to step back, we're gonna be getting about $80 million in total, a little less than that. There is a portion of the pot that's called recovered revenues, and it was calculated per the law, and it is money that we are allowed to use with some limited restrictions. What you saw tonight, what council voted on tonight, is coming out of those recovered revenues. The rest of the money, and we've got about $30 million in recovered revenues. The rest of the money, the $50 million, those are pieces that will be coming to you as the program moves along. So the micro business loans and some of the other things that you've done recently, those are coming out of that other side of the money. And affordable housing could be a part of that. You'd have to meet federal requirements for that. You can talk better to what can happen with that other side.
Did Corinne answer your question, Reverend? So she's got about $50 million that's set aside and affordable housing money, which we know we are working on, and some of that money is going to be set aside. It just left up to this council to determine how much they want to use out of that $50 million for affordable housing.
I hear that, Mr. Chair. I just want to make certain that we seem to be giving everything away, so I want to make certain that there's something left.
Oh, yeah. Well, as long as I'm here, there's going to be something left. And I think the rest of the council too, but I hear what you're saying. But whatever comes spent out of that $50 million would have to come to us for a vote anyway. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, and thank you, Ms. Alton.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Mr. Wehrman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I certainly understand and would echo Councilman Middleton's concerns. I did want to keep us procedurally, though, kind of on track. I kind of feel like we've already approved the 1.2 for the facilities in 8A.
Right.
Okay, just making
That's
sure.
what I just said a few minutes ago. Yes, sir. All right, Ms. Johnson, then I go down to that, Mr. Moody down there.
That Mr. Moody?
So we are doing a request to approve for the FTE separate?
No, well, yeah. What I did was I changed the agenda so Ms. Honeycutt can participate. So when you vote for item number 4, that money is already been allocated in 8A.
Okay.
Meaning I didn't have to say anything about it.
Okay,
Right.
all right.
Right.
That's,
All right, Reverend Moody.
Moody, first of all, I'll move to create the FTE that coroner needs.
Is there a second for 4A?
Second.
Okay. Discussion now, Mr. Moody.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Coroner, thank you very much, and thank you for coming to us. It's not often, as you said, people come and make presentations and say, I don't need any money. Thank you, and also thank you for all your work with the grants stuff as well.
Yeah.
That's incredible, where we've got an entity in Charleston County working so hard to help pay for themselves, and it's truly appreciated. So just wanted to say that. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I believe on your next committee meetings, you'll have more yellow sheets, we have more grants coming in.
Keep them coming.
That's right, that's right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anybody else? All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chair, I know I can't vote, but did we ever receive a copy of that salary study that supposedly, that we were working on so long ago? Because all of these salaries, I definitely, approve of what we just did, but $275,000 in this salary line item. I know that we were looking at, kind of making other people a little bit more toward a living wage. Did we ever receive that salary study?
Ms. Alton, aye.
We have just started the process for doing a market study. We met with a representative from the company this week. We will be sending him data on county employees, or org charts, things like that, and then also pointing out to him positions that we're having trouble filling. We have requested the departments to let us know what specific positions they want us to look at when we do the market study.
Did that answer your question, sir?
Thank you very much.
And remember, this is not an increase to her budget. This money is coming out of money that she's already appropriated. What she's saying is, instead of paying it to MUSC or outside agencies, she's going to hire somebody more or less, I would call it a consultant, because that's basically all they're going to be doing. So that money would be coming out of her already budget that she has now without an increase.
Yes, sir, I understand that.
All right, okay.
Yes,
All right.
and it may be, I put 275 in there, and that could be negotiable, depending on their experience level. That's
Yeah.
just gonna happen through the recruitment process.
But
Yeah.
I like what you're doing preparing for the future.
Yes,
And you don't want to wait until it happens
No.
and then you further behind. So I concur with Mr. Moody. Thank you so much for
Mr. Pryor, I did wanna-
looking to the
You were
future.
right, I forgot to ask something, you were kind of barking up that same tree. What's the typical, I mean, this is a medical doctor,
Yes.
what sort of background specialties is a typical?
Yeah, so they are a physician
have?
who has a specialty in pathology, and then they also do a fellowship in forensic pathology. So they have to be boarded in two different specialties: anatomic pathology, and also forensic pathology. So the only individuals I would bring into our facility would be a board certified forensic pathologist.
Typical years of service? Ballpark.
Oh my goodness, Dr. Ross, how
Don't
long were
point
you
at
in
her.
school? And so the problem is that there is a shortage. So it's a matter of whether we can recruit the right person. I'm not as interested in a warm body,
Right.
but we also have physicians who are finishing their fellowship. Unfortunately, they finish their fellowships at the end of June. Most of them have all taken positions, and so that may be a little difficult to try to recruit someone out of this class, which would come in at a little lower salary. They have less
Yeah.
experience, those kinds of things. That's something I will work with the legal department probably on an employment contract. So we'll take good care of the office and the county and make sure that we're doing due diligence there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you accommodating, I should have gotten all my questions in on one ask, so I appreciate you.
Yeah. And again, the invitation is open. If you'd like to come by the office and see our facility, see our capabilities, I'm glad to do that. I've been giving a lot of tours lately, and we're that small office, nobody really knows what we do, and I'm glad to share that with you.
And tell whoever that person is, the cost of living is a lot cheaper here than where they coming from.
Well, probably.
So that salary is negotiable.
There you go. That salary is negotiable, and you never know what
Right.
they may be interested in. And again, I'll work with
Thank
our
you.
attorney here and make sure we have a good plan.
But again, thank you so much in your leadership, and look forward to getting whatever you need.
Thank you so
Okay?
much.
Thank you.
I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Anybody else? And so we voted on the motion, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, okay. I didn't
Thank
want. All right, thank you so much. You got her phone number? Okay, get her phone number for me.
Did we vote on that, actually?
Yes, we did.
Let me do it again. Yeah, you made the motion,
Creation of FTE.
and yeah, he seconded, so all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it, so now we screwed. Okay, so we have need of an executive session to discuss a personnel matter. I'm gonna turn this over to the Madam Esquire.
Yes, sir. It's my understanding there's a need for an executive session to discuss some personnel-related issues with a potential candidate for one of our boards.
Okey dokey, so is there a motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Johnson, moved by Mr. Moody. Any discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, ayes have it. We are going to adjourn. All other staff members who are not needing this executive session.
Listen. You put all this candy, where you got all this candy from? Him.
Somebody else, one more member, two more members. Come on in. Come on in. All right. We out of executive session. In executive session, we received legal advice from our attorney and also some advice from our staff. No action was taken. Is there any more business to come before this body? Seeing none, meeting adjourned. All right, now, I can go take the wife to get something.